The iPhone SE 2020 was released back in what seems like, dang, it seems like an eternity ago. Seriously, does April even seem like it was real anymore? Either way, it's been about 6 months since the iPhone SE 2020 came out, so how is it holding up as a daily driver, and is it still the amazing value with other devices coming out on the market? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Whew. 6 months later. I feel like that's a pretty important milestone in a product's life where it's kind of gotten over that initial shine, maybe it's received a firmware update or two, and it's comfortably sitting in a stable place, which, I mean, you're right, that does make a lot of sense, which is why I like to make these milestone videos. It's like it's planned out. Kinda. So the iPhone SE 2020 has been my daily driver during most of my working from home stint. Not so much in the past week, as I'm doing a week test drive on a different device, but more on that this Friday. If you've already seen my "You Should Buy the iPhone SE" video, then you'll know that I'm darn in love with this thing. I'll try and not let that cloud my personal opinion too much, but I mean, it is my personal opinion, and there is no truly unbiased human endeavor, so I'll do my best, but I do really enjoy this. You know, factor that in as you watch this video. First up, let's get into the things that I don't like after all of this time, because despite my infatuation, there are two things that I'm not over the moon about. Number one is something that's shared across iPhones, and it's not really specific to this device, it's all iPhones. And to further niche this down, this is really only a problem for working professionals that spend hours, and it's depressing me to say this out loud, but people that spend hours a day in web conferencing meetings. The internal speakers for the speakerphone, they're not great. They sound pretty tinny. And when I say they sound pretty tinny, I mean like one of the least comfortable sound experiences that I go through on a daily basis. Now, I'm not an audio expert, so I don't know that I'm explaining this correctly. I don't even know how to explain this correctly. But from my layman's perspective and attending meetings all day, using the speakerphone option on the iPhone SE, it just leaves me exhausted, drained, and depending on the day, it could leave me with an absolute splitting headache. The thought of listening to this all day, ugh. Though I'm not as hard about it because this is a very niche problem that you could, and I have fixed, by using a cheap Bluetooth speaker or headphones with the iPhone SE. But dang, if you are in a pinch and you need to use the voice speakerphone, it can be rough after a full day of use. And the second problem is something that I've mentioned in all 3 of my iPhone SE videos, the battery life. Since we made that initial SE video, I've kind of developed my own standard for battery life. I don't care if a device gets 24 hours of life or anything crazy like that, because no matter what, my phone's gonna get plugged in at the end of the night while I'm sleeping. It's gonna stay plugged in and get charged while I'm sleeping. I don't need an eternity of battery life. But what I do need is a tech device to comfortably get me through 1 working day of battery life. So doing light to medium use, 8 hours. You gotta give me a buffer to get me comfortably through 8 hours. And the SE does that, but not with a wide enough margin, and it doesn't really leave you any wiggle room if you do have a late work day or in the event that you have to take work home with you. You will, if you're using this during the day, you'll immediately need to plug this into the wall. Again, the world has changed since I originally got this phone, and that's pretty tempered for me in actual use because I've been stuck. My working from home office is right through the door right there. I've been stuck in that tiny basement room now for 6 months now, so it's always within close distance of a lightning charger. The battery life does what I need it to do, but it's not a comfortable margin. And that's all the negatives. An easy fixable speaker issue that all of the iPhones have, and the battery life on a $300.99 phone with a flagship processor is just barely acceptable. And if we're gonna if I've got a book out here, I've got a book, I'm making my check marks, that's pretty good. So that leaves us now free to discuss what I like, and thank goodness, because there is a lot. Obviously, I've made several videos, and a whole video saying that you should buy one of these. There's a lot that I like, so I'm glad that we get to talk about that now. First off, in the things I like, maybe it's childish, but I like the color options. It's gonna sound silly, and I definitely feel like as I get older, I'm supposed to start liking more muted tones, right? He says as he sits in front of a big gray background. But I like being able to have a little more fun with how my phones look. There's only so much space gray, silver, and gold that there's only so much of those that I can take. We passed that a long time ago. My MacBooks, my iPads, everything looks the same. I like having different colors. Sure, you only have white, black, and red, but I like the bolder colors, like the white, the black, and the red. I like that because it just makes your phone stand out. And I think it makes cases that are kind of matte and they're a little more subdued. I think they look so much better when contrasted against something like this. I do kind of miss all the fun options from my iPhone XR days though. That would be sweet. The next thing I really like is a refrain that you'll have already heard me say, but Touch ID is great. Touch ID should be included on all devices from Apple going forward. Even if an Apple phone or iPad, even if it has Face ID, it needs to have Touch ID. Only having Face ID as your primary unlocking ability, that's a pre-2020 luxury. And even when/if things settle down and we can more easily and safely interact with each other, face masks probably aren't going away anytime soon. Face ID was made for a world that doesn't really exist anymore. And Touch ID, just Touch ID, needs to make a comeback on everything. I'm even good with it existing as like an unlock button from the iPad Air 4 rumors. Those two paragraphs lead me to saying that I love Touch ID on the iPhone SE. It's absolutely one of the selling features of this phone to me. When you think about it and you look at the lineup, this is the only phone with a processor this powerful and Touch ID if you're talking about Apple stuff. It's legitimately great. It's legitimately great, and again, everything needs to have this going forward. It probably won't be on the iPhone 12. These devices have long product development timelines, and I guarantee it was already like through and approved prototyping when, you know, all the working from home started. So I doubt 12 would have it, but if you're sketching out the 13, please include Touch ID. The next thing I really like, and it's definitely a personal preference, is the size. Some people enjoy bigger phones. I am not one of you. I do not enjoy big phones at all. I like having a smaller phone because I always have my iPad with me anyways, so if I really want to watch a video in a bigger format, I can always just grab the iPad. And if I do want to do some work, again, I have the iPad with the Magic Keyboard on it. I don't need the phone to do everything. I also don't want Zoolander tiny, but I think the iPhone SE perfectly balances how small that I want a phone. Yes, if you have bezel phobia, the size of the SE will probably set you off. It has some pretty substantial bezels, but bezels don't bother me too much, so meh. Another big thing that I really like about the small size is sometimes just trying to use my iPhone 11, it's just big enough that holding the phone is fine, but if I'm trying to type or swipe something across it, it really stretches my hands out and it's kind of uncomfortable. That does balance out if I'm doing two-handed typing. It's a little bit better on that bigger phone, but that part's not a big enough benefit to me to want to have that larger phone. I just like how easy it is to tap all over the screen on the iPhone SE. Wow, I just spent 3 paragraphs arguing with myself on phone size. I argue with myself a lot, if you didn't know. Like as I'm typing, I'll argue with myself. If you like smaller phones, which I do, you'll like the iPhone SE. Take that, Gary. Okay, the next thing that I really like isn't necessarily a single spec or feature. I like the whole overall package. Yes, it's got the, okay, as of today, it's got the cutting edge A13 processor on it. It's got enough RAM and it has a Retina display. But what that really means is all together, all of that stuff together, you get a surprisingly functional little device. This will bring you everything in the Apple ecosystem. And at the same time, it will undercut the normal rationale for not getting an Apple device. Seriously, hold on, just brace yourselves and tell me if you've heard this before. Well, actually, I don't know why anybody would buy an Apple device. You have to pay the Apple tax. Here's an under $400 phone that has all of the latest technology and has all of the Apple niche features all of us YouTubers can't shut up about. iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, Apple Watch compatibility. Geez, this is like a basic walking, talking YouTube video, and it costs less than $400. Take that again, Gary. Wow, I'm arguing with myself a lot today. That point kind of went off topic from an all-in-one package into a price thing, so let's touch on that price thing a little bit more. The price is awesome. I also think I've said this in every video that I've made about the SE, but I honestly have no idea why anybody would pick an Android phone when something like this exists for this price. I'm saying that, but I also put my money where my mouth is. I just bought my wife a new one of these with 128 gigabytes of storage for $450. That's a fantastic deal for any phone, let alone a phone with a legit processor and all of that other jazz that we already covered. Like to get all of that in one of these things, that I get so excited about this phone. Legitimately, this is probably one of my favorite, not just phones, but this is probably one of my favorite like technology devices ever made. The next thing that I really like, okay, it hasn't actually happened yet. I know that sounds crazy. Heck, maybe it is crazy, but hear me out. The longevity of this device. The longevity of this device will be insane. And okay, sure, I can't say the exact date right now that the iPhone SE eventually will go out of style or will be sunset and stop getting updates, but that day will be years. Yes, I typed years in all capital letters in the script to make sure you understand that will be years away. It's something that I like to contrast this against. The iPhone 6S is kind of like my current gold standard example for how long Apple will support a phone. And they still support the 6S. And that 6S, that over 5-year-old phone, will be getting their latest operating system when it's released later this year. And it's got every operating system on the way up to that one. What other company does that? None. None other company does that. You might be lucky to get bug fixes for up to, 3 years if you have an Android phone? Maybe you'll even get the next version of Android. Or even the fact, and this is crazy, the fact that you'll get the next version or two of your operating system, that's seen as a major selling feature on some phones. What? I don't understand it. That's something that drives me crazy about online phone discourse. Quick rant. The only reason people complain about Apple specs is because everything else is locked in. You don't have to worry about a single thing when you buy an iPhone. The ecosystem is the best. The phones just work. You have to do like these mental gymnastics to say, oh, it's missing this one highly niche thing, 120 hertz cough. It's missing this highly niche thing, so it's gonna fail. Come on. Come on. Okay, enough about that. And the last thing that I really like about the iPhone SE 2, 6 months later, is the camera. It's not the latest camera sensor technology from Apple, nor is it the fastest lens, but it's pretty solid compared to the competition. You get 4K recording on the rear camera and 1080p on the front camera. You get portrait photography mode on both. And if you really want to unlock some more potential out of both of these cameras, you can always download a secondary app that will give you some more manual control over the lens. You can change shutter speed, ISO, all that stuff. You can have more control over this. I think for video, this does fantastically well, again, especially considering the price tag. And I now honestly recommend this when people ask me what camera they should get with a sub $400 budget. The stabilization is fine, the audio quality is good enough. Treating this strictly like a camera, and again, for that price point, you are getting great value. But it's not just a camera. That's great. It's great. It's not just a camera. It's not just a phone. It does so much. But at the end of the day, so what, right? How is the iPhone SE holding up 6 months later? I think it's holding up fantastically well. Obviously, I think it's holding up fantastically well, or I wouldn't have made so many videos about it. I also wouldn't have made a video saying that you should buy one. I have very little to complain about, and because of this phone's existence, I don't know that I could ever recommend something other than an iPhone. The value proposition just isn't anywhere else unless you have to have some super niche specs, whether better battery life, better camera, stuff like that you need to go to like an 11 or 12 when it comes out Pro model. This just does it all. But what do you think? Do you have the iPhone SE? Are you looking for a new phone and are considering the iPhone SE? Leave me a comment below and let's see who else has been enjoying one of these or who else is considering buying one of these. And if you like this video and you want to see what my argument is on why you should buy one of these, you can find that video. It's going to be right up over here. Click on the iPhone SE to watch more about the iPhone SE. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.